Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Pretty nice and kind of mild morning so far here as we approach the Christmas holiday. We are in our first week of December, so hope everyone's doing good. So yeah, I've been again changing things up here on this channel. I've been mostly like recording videos, kind of letting them sit for a while, and then I eventually upload them. That entails, doing the typing the text for the video and doing the finding a good photo, a thumbnail, things like that. The other thing I've been doing a lot is I've been setting a lot of these videos up as a Premiere. So just to kind of break up, because I pretty much record a video every day. Sometimes I will upload it right away. I used to do that for about almost a year straight. I was recording a video and then usually uploading that same video every day or every morning. And typically I would do them, I do the videos usually in the morning. I don't usually like to do them at night because by the end of the day, I'm usually pretty tired. My energy's a little bit low. So I like to, I usually love to do this as kind of the first thing in the day or one of the first, activities that I do. I feel like it kind of sets me in the right space, sets me up. So it's way back a few years ago when I was doing, before I had this channel, I was doing Facebook Live videos all the time. And that was a totally different way of how I did the videos then because I had a job where I was working nights. And typically what I would do is I would do all of the videos after work. I would come home and I used to set it up where I would do it in my living room. It was Facebook Live, and I would come in. Typically, I'd come home from work, take a shower or something, and then crack open a beer and put on the laptop. And that's usually what I would do. And I used to record them. I would typically record the videos usually at 10 or 10:30 at night. But now it's like now I just focus on. I mean, I still have my Facebook page. Still have the Instagram page. Had to redo that one because of getting hacked, but I don't stay up on those pages as much. I mean, of course, I'm going to still post things on them, but mainly I've been just doing my thing with cranking out these videos on this channel. I find it's a lot easier, and it's I feel like I've been able to build a little bit more of an audience through it. Facebook's great, or whatever, but and I'll start posting back on there again. I just haven't get a little bit lazy, and then and then it takes a lot of time to do all of that stuff, so I'm just kind of doing the videos. But anyway, I do a whole the whole situation now with how I do these videos is very different, and it's a lot easier. And I find one of the coolest things that's been happening is I really appreciate all the people who have been commenting on these videos. It's a fun little hobby of mine. I really love doing it. So it's really nice to find other people that are, that are into this kind of stuff and that, or look at movies in a little bit of a different light. So one of the things I'm trying to do now with a couple of friends is we're planning, loosely planning, because it's a little bit complicated because of the holiday, because it's on Christmas Day. But we'll see what happens. I have I have a feeling it could work out. I think it should work out because I think it would be kind of awesome. But Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is coming out on Christmas Day, which I am so excited to see. That's easily my most anticipated movie coming up, and it has been a movie I've been looking forward to for a very long time. For probably almost 2 years, which is crazy when it was first announced that this movie was going to be coming out. So it's wild to think that it's been that long. The last movie of his, which I saw in the theater, also with one of my friends that were planning on doing this whole thing, we saw the Northman in the theater, and that's an amazing film. I really uh, need to see it again. I only saw it once in the theater. Epic, beautiful, incredible. So but what we're trying to do is it's opening up on Christmas Day, which I think is hilarious and amazing and blasphemous and just amazing and just it doesn't get any cooler than that. So we're thinking of trying to get a little group of friends to go see Nosferatu here in town on Christmas night, which I think would be so badass. Like go, we're talking about going to the late show because obviously it's Christmas Day and there's like family things going on, and typically for me I have like a Christmas Eve dinner with my family, and also we do the same thing on Christmas Day even though it's earlier. So and then you got to open up all your presents from Santa Claus, and then there might be a separate another Christmas event that I might be going to. So trying to figure all that out, but I think it might work because that would really change things up. But I think that would be pretty amazing if we get a little group of people and we go to the late show on Christmas Day. I think that would be pretty awesome. So we'll see. Right now it's in the early phases, but so this brings me to the movie today. So as much as I love, and I don't believe I have done a show on this movie. This is actually a documentary. I have not covered any documentaries in a while. I am a huge fan of documentaries. There was probably about 9 or 10 years ago, I got really, really into documentaries, and I used to go to the Camden Film Festival, which is here right in Camden, Maine, and it's been 15 years, I think, since they've been doing it, maybe more. And from the beginning stages of that, I would go to it every year. A few years back, I kind of, I had some friends, no, my brother had come to town. Usually the Camden Film Festival is every September. It's usually right around my birthday. And for many years in a row, I would always go to it. I'd get one of the passes, or I'd buy the individual tickets and go to it. And the Camden Film Festivals, it's changed a lot over the years, but it's still a pretty incredible event, and it's it's a very important event too, I think. And it's all documentaries, and I used to go to it every year. And then one year it was I don't know, it was a little while back, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. My brother had come up to visit, and it was around the time of my birthday, and it was usually like at that point I was going every year, and he was not into going to this festival, and I ended up not going, and ever since then I haven't gone to any of the shows. So I've been kind of out of touch with documentaries. But there was a while where I was going, again, going to this festival all the time, and then I was buying all kinds of documentaries. I love documentaries. And I have a pretty good collection. I'm thinking about doing a show or more shows in the future where I'm going to really dive into my docs that I have. I have quite a few, and I am a huge fan of those. And I used to, like, again, when I really got into them, and I was watching them, all the time. And I've gotten a pretty good collection of mostly DVDs of some really incredible documentaries. So this documentary today is one of the more, I think it's one of the most important, and I think it's one of the most, it's definitely one of my favorite documentaries. But that being said, it kind of slightly switching gears, but as much as I love, horror films, and that is my favorite genre, and that's, I'm always trying to bring some new variety, bring some new things, bring some new colors to the channel. I like lots of different things, but we all have our things that we naturally gravitate towards. And that being said, it's like horror has always been my favorite. That's always my go-to thing. But this film, I consider this to be a horror film, but this movie is not dealing with fictional monsters. This is dealing with real monsters. And it's one of the most disturbing and unsettling documentaries I've ever seen. it. I watched it last night. I don't believe I've talked about this movie before. I watched it last night. I started watching it a little bit late. I started watching it at like close to 11 o'clock, which is a little bit late for me to start watching a movie during the week, especially. Like, I typically will watch a movie, 9 o'clock, 9:30 or whatever. So typically what I do during a day is if I don't have practice or rehearsal, which as far as rehearsals go, it's been kind of consistent twice a week. It hasn't been very much, maybe three times, but it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm very busy with rehearsals. Well, I'll rehearse 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but lately it's been pretty broken up. Back to rehearsing every Wednesday, most Tuesdays, but Tuesdays have been getting canceled. Wednesday I have practice, and then I've been doing practices on Thursday. But as of late, it's been pretty open. So typically, when I don't have practice here at home, I will, come home after work, take a little break, and then I'll work on some music stuff until about 9:30 or so, until I'm kind of tapped out. That's typically when I'll watch a movie. But this movie, I was watching it last night. I started it a little too late, but I really wanted to watch it. And at one point, probably the halfway point, maybe a little bit more, I felt like I need a break from this movie. Maybe I'm gonna hit pause and go watch some UFO videos. I've been on this kick of watching. I'm really into all things tied to UFOs, and so lately, because of all of these things that have been happening in the UFO universe, I've been watching lots of shows and interviews about that subject, which I find really enjoyable. But a lot of it, some of it, is kind of brainless, and some of it's very interesting, and it's a combination, but it's kind of escapism. So I've been watching that a lot, watching a few YouTube channels about it. One guy in particular I've been watching. So at one point I was watching this film and I was like, "Wow, this is so gut wrenching and so hard to watch. I need a break. I'm gonna hit pause, and maybe watch this tomorrow, or just, it was just a little bit too intense to be watching so late." But I ended up watching the rest of it. I ended up finishing this film, and it's literally one of the most gut wrenching, and for that matter, one of the most awful stories a person can imagine. And the film that I'm talking about is Deliver Us from Evil. This movie came out in 2000, yeah, 2000, in 2006, or no, 2008. It's a documentary, Deliver Us from Evil. One of the most challenging movies to get through. It's a documentary. It's definitely a documentary. It follows. There are many people that are interviewed throughout this documentary, and I don't believe I've ever done a show on this. But this movie, to me, is a true life horror film. Anytime, and again, it always comes up. It comes up way too many times, I think, especially in this day and age, where people will start, the kind of the conservative fraction or faction of our society will start, you know, blaming all of society's woes, or why people are prone to criminal acts. They'll do the whole thing of well, it's because of video games, kids watch too many video games, or it's horror movies, or it's heavy metal music. This is why people are doing bad things. They blame horror movies, they blame games, they blame Ozzy Osbourne, or whatever the hell it is now that they'll use as far as music. But it's the same old argument. And it's always the same thing. Whether you were in the 80s, which I remember as a kid, the PMRC, the Parental Music Resource. And there's this new wave now of that happening because, as a country, you know, as we sit here now in this country now, in this incredibly sad state of affairs, what we do as citizens is we decide to vote in all of these crazed Christian fundamentalists in office. So we're going to be going through this more and more, unfortunately. So anyway, but people always criticize horror films for being, the reason that society is fucked up. And to me, it's just like the most ridiculous argument. And it always goes so far to where people are saying, well, it goes into the territory of where people start mentioning censorship, or that things shouldn't be made, or that should be silenced. And I think in the world, especially in this world, if anything, with as with everything, we're literally, I think, insanity has become the new sanity, and it's become this accepted thing now. There is even more, I think, a reason to dive into these films and to escape and to create and to use your imagination. But to me, at the end of the day, this is a real life monster movie. There's no escaping from this kind of a monster. And Deliver Us from Evil is about the horrible atrocities that the Roman Catholic Church. It's all of the accounts of how this whole pedophile scandal started. And this scandal that goes from starts at the very, very top of the Roman Catholic Church in Rome to from the very top to the very bottom was a one of the most biggest, one of the most undescribable atrocities I think that's ever happened in human culture and human civilization, for that matter. Where you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of kids, where their lives have been just completely destroyed and turned upside down. And this film is basically where they interview one of the priests that right before, right as well, it was kind of right before the scandal kind of got press, before it broke. There is this that's when this film was made. It was basically right at the cusp of when the scandal broke, and the magnitude of this film is so brutal and kind of relentless. It is, as hard as this film is to watch, it's one of the greatest documentaries ever made. I think it's definitely one of my favorite. To use the word favorite for something like this is kind of an odd thing. But as far as just a really incredible movie that's so incredibly powerful, this is definitely, one of them, and one of the most important films. And it's that whole kind of thing of where basically, after seeing this film, and I've believed this for a long time, but I believe that the Roman Catholic Church. There's another film that came out, an actual film called Spotlight, that came out a few years ago, which is about the very same subject, which is just an incredible film. That movie's a masterpiece, dealing with the same subject, and Michael Keaton is in that film, and it's such a powerful film. But it's such a it's a the this film is such a rude awakening to the reality that we live in, and it really shows that the Roman Catholic Church is essentially the mafia. Like, they have so much money, so much influence, so much power. They can do anything that they want, including being above the law and destroying people's lives. And there is zero accountability for them. And I often think of, you know, how does that work? Like, what's worse, the perpetrators or the people that support these organizations? You know, where they are aware of these things, the information is out there, and yet people who are not, say, responsible for these actual acts, you know, still will support these systems and still will, I don't know, in some strange way, kind of bypass it or pretend it's not there or sweep it under the rug and still pay their tax money to support these organizations or this organization. And it's astounding to me. Like, you wonder, like, I don't believe in literal evil, or I think good and evil is subjective. You know, I think, you know, I've had a relatively good upbringing, and I have a sense of ethics and like a moral. I do, I guess, have a moral code, and I'm aware of the laws of the land, and try to have respect for people. But I also feel that there is, you know, if you're going to use the term evil per se, where I don't look at the concept of evil as being some otherworldly or some kind of supernatural force. I look at the word or the definition of goodness or evil as being something I attribute to more of like a metaphor. You know, like, to me, I for me it comes from the same world or family as mythology. It just represents. There's nothing literal about it. It's just a representation, and it's of the human experience, and it's also a culmination of what the human experience is. I don't look at it as being a true manifestation of those things. It's just a representation. But if I was to use the word evil, this is the, I feel like, the very definition. So it's often the thing I think about of how, what people do in the face of that. Do they turn a blind eye and continue to support something, knowing what they're doing, or do they, because at the end of the day, they it keeps them in business? And it raises so many questions. But anyway, this film is such a hard film to get through. I do recommend it. It's ironic, and I just realized that, you know, I was watching this last night, and it's, you know, Christmas season. So, but yeah, I don't believe I've talked about this movie before, but one of the most powerful movies ever made, documentaries. It's it's hard to get through this film without kind of losing your shit. So, really recommend it though, nevertheless, because it's a story that we have to be aware of, and we have to, you know, to a degree, I feel like it's something that people need to take a stand against. So, thanks again, and we will see you next time. Next time, I will have something a little bit more upbeat and family friendly.